I'm Zach.
And I'm Darcy. Did you know that pornography doesn't have to destroy you or your marriage? We're the parents of 8 active members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we love to help people just like you.
We're here to share hope and healing as we take you through our journey and the journeys of our amazing clients to greater joy and love. Come grow with us to a happier, more meaningful life. Welcome to the Self-Mastery Podcast. Hey everybody, and welcome to another beautiful Mastery Monday here on the Self-Mastery Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Spafford. Hey, I got another podcast review I wanted to share with you. And this one I think touches really on the point of my podcast in a pretty significant way. So the title is Much Needed Content in a Widely Encompassing Battle. This is from Cody M1213. And he says, or she says, I don't know if it's a dude, but I'm going to assume it's a dude because it's Cody. The rise in the habitual use of pornography has gone up. And while many don't see this as a problem, the main problem is this. If you wanted to stop but couldn't from just choosing, then is that a good way to live? And I think this is really the point of what we try to do here at my coaching practice and in the podcast. We're not here to condemn people for looking at pornography. I mean, if you want to look at porn, I'm not here to be like, no, this is bad and you should never do that. That's not really what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is help people figure out, is this who I want to be? And if it's not who I want to be, then how can I begin the process of eliminating this behavior from my life so that I can be the person that I want to be? And I think that's really important. So today's podcast is really about how my wife used sex as a way to try and control me and how I wanted her to. And I think you guys will hopefully find this interesting, and maybe you'll see a little bit of the reality of your own life in this conversation. But hopefully you can see that this is something that happens actually fairly often in homes, and just isn't really necessary if we can take a step back and start the process of owning what it is that we're doing, right? You guys have heard Darcy on the podcast. You know, she's a wonderful woman, and I love her, and I adore her, and she also used to try and control me with sex. And it wasn't always overt, right? And it wasn't usually something that was, designed to make me do something that I didn't want to do. In fact, it was really the opposite. She was trying to get me to not do something. She was trying to get me to a place where she could keep me from looking at porn. And I didn't really want to look at porn, and I wanted to stop. So, I thought this was great. I thought this was awesome, right? And it was always in her mind, something that she would do to like meet my needs. And I thought she was, by what she was doing, meeting my needs. We call this duty sex oftentimes, but it's that like I'm gonna do for you. I'm gonna be the one up here, and I'm gonna help you, quote unquote, solve your problem. And I thought she was helping me solve my problem, right? In her mind, my pornography problem was about controlling how often I needed to give in to my urges. And I think this is really important, right? Like we think we have needs. Right? We have this biological need that means that we have to have sex every so often, right? And she thought, and I thought, if she could interrupt my urge by engaging with me sexually, then she was helping me. And she thought she was helping control my choice to use pornography, because if I didn't need sex, then why would I turn to porn, right? And she would ask questions like, how are you doing today? In an effort to gauge where I was and if she needed to intervene by providing me with an outlet, we'll call it, for the day, right? And what she was doing in reality was frustrating herself. And she was also rewarding my pleasure center for disconnected and isolating behavior. And here are the two main things that were frustrating her. First was the fact that she could not, despite her best efforts, control my urges or when or how I acted on them, right? She thought, okay, if I give him an orgasm, really that's really what it ended up being, right? Is if I give him an orgasm, that should control Zach's urges and how Zach interacts with his urges. And whenever we try to control others, what do we find? We find ourselves frustrated. The people that we're trying to control, they're going to rebel. They're going to deceive us. They are going to find a way around us. And people are like water, right? They will go wherever their personal gravity takes them. And I think that's pretty inevitable. And that's really how I operated. The second thing that kept her frustrated, and I think more importantly, this is the more important of the two, is that when what each of us really wanted was intimacy in the deepest and most connected sense of the word, we were creating resentment, right? She was creating resentment, and I was creating disappointment, right? I was disappointed in myself. I was disappointed in what was happening. She resented me for what I was choosing, even though, she had no control over it, and she thought she could, right? And control is really antithetical to intimacy, because inherent in intimacy is trust, and control doesn't require any of that. She resented needing to look over my shoulder to make sure I was making good decisions, right? She was checking on me, making sure I was a good boy. And I was disappointed that the intimacy that I wanted wasn't available in a resentful spouse. Now, don't get me wrong. When you and your spouse decide that pornography use is not okay in your household, then both of you should take steps to create an environment where viewing pornography is difficult. And, you guys, if you've listened to this podcast long enough, I'm not condoning pornography use. I'm also saying here that whether you are a man or a woman making a decision to intercede in the urges of your spouse or another person in an effort to control their actions is not going to work out well for you in the long run. So let's flip this on its head for a moment. Let's just kind of pay attention to this from a different angle. Imagine Darcy came to me and she was like struggling with eating sugary treats, and each morning, I was like, "Hey, how are you feeling about that cheesecake and fresh strawberries in the fridge?" And during the discussions that I had with her, I could maybe like hear my wife having a hard time and hear her telling me about how she's trying not to sneak, and eat that cheesecake because she knows, that's for dessert, after dinner this evening, but that she really wants to have just a little. So what if I said to her, "Hey, I know what, I'll help you out. I will meet your needs because you want something sweet, right? So I've got a carrot for you." And that should tide you over, because carrots are full of sugar. Carrots actually have quite a bit of sugar in them. If you're on like a no sugar diet, I think it's like one of the things you're not supposed to eat, right? Or if you're like really, paying attention to your health, your trainer. Darcy told me that her trainer would tell her she wasn't allowed to eat carrots when she was a kid, right? My attempt here to help her out, right, places me in a position that doesn't make any sense to anyone, right? And in giving her like a sweet treat, it's not really what she wants, is it? Like that carrot, that's not what she wants. She wants the cheesecake, right? And she may even take that carrot and eat it. She might be like, "Oh, okay." But then how many of you wives out there wouldn't feel like resentful that your spouse is trying to control what you eat? And just kind of be honest, confront this situation as best you can from where you are. I'm not telling you, try it out. It's not like for sure that this is going to make sense to you, or even that it is right? I just, what if this might be a good way to look at this, right? And you might see some parallels there. And what we all have to understand is that controlling others' behavior isn't really going to bring us or them to the place that we want to be, that we want to get to together. And I think, any of you who have tried this, you might know that this creates a short-term fix and probably is creating a long-term negative effect. So how do you avoid this? Right? So ask yourself, is this working? Is this proposition, is this thing that I'm doing working? Is trying to control the behavior of my spouse, my partner, working? And, make your decision about you being your best you, right? So be confront what it is that's going on for you, not for them. Look at what's going on in your head for you about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And if you need time before re-engaging with your spouse sexually when they look at pornography, let them know and, wait until you're ready to engage with them again. But always do it from a position of you confronting your own brain, your own needs, your own wants, what's actually happening for you. And if your spouse is offering you carrots when really what you want is cake, I would confront that. I would just discuss that openly and just be prepared to come to no conclusion there, but also be prepared to stay close to each other. And when you're because it's disorganizing when you think, okay, my spouse is not. We agree that we're not looking at pornography in this household, right? And then when your spouse does look at pornography, that's disorganizing because what happens is you had organized this pattern of behavior that you expected in your mind. And when that pattern is broken, you have to now confront that differently. And so you want to be aware that that's disorganizing and be, ready to confront it. Not like, I'm going to get mad, confront it, but just look it in the eyes and say, oh, what are we doing that we don't actually want to be doing here, and why are we doing it? And I'll be honest with you guys, for a long time, I really wanted Darcy to control my internet access on my phone, my computers. I wanted her to control anything that I could get into trouble with. But I found that doesn't work because in the end, I needed to make good decisions based on my long-term desires, not my short-term urges. I don't know if I've said this here on the podcast before, but I've often had people ask me questions like, what's the best internet filter that you can use? And what's the best accountability partner system that you can use? And I often tell them that, so we use Covenant Eyes in our household for our kids, but for adults, and the reason we use Covenant Eyes is, and we have a link on the webpage if you want to check it out. You go to zachspafford.com and there's a link somewhere at the top of the page that it takes you to a page where there are a bunch of links. And on that page, there's a Covenant Eyes link. You can check it out there if you want. But the reason we use that for the kids is because it creates conversations, right? Because it reports to us what they're doing. It doesn't totally block everything, but it does block most things because we want to create an environment where it's somewhat difficult to get into pornography, but we also want to know when that pornography is being accessed so we can just have conversations about it. But when it comes to adults, when it comes to humans in general, really, the only good filter is the one between your ears. The only good accountability partner is the one between your ears. It's your own brain, it's your own system within your mind to manage yourself, right? And having Darcy be in control of me was not going to work. Being the person that takes the carrots, right? Because that was me. I was taking the carrots, and then I was mad that I wasn't happy with them. And I was mad that my partner was putting health food in my face when what I really wanted was dessert, that evening with my spouse, right? And so I want you to just kind of be aware. You might be taking those carrots and being like, okay, right? Or, I have heard innumerable times from men, right? Take what you can get, right? If she's offering, I'm taking, right? That's not really what you want, to be honest. And in the long run, you're going to find that is unsatisfying. So here's what I know. Proactively confronting yourself and why you're choosing pornography over intimacy is essential to changing this habit. Being held accountable doesn't mean someone is constantly checking your phone. And we all know that things can be hidden and that it's not your spouse's job to manage your phone. And users have to be 100% responsible for their actions, no one else, right? So I had a conversation with my son today, and I was like, no, you can't have this phone anymore. He's not doing his schoolwork. He's not showing up to his practices. He's just not engaging in responsible behavior, right? He's not being the person that he needs to be so that he can have privileges like having a phone, which are mostly just distractions these days, right? And he's like, well, it's your fault that I don't have a phone. No, right? Like, you listening to this, you can probably think, oh, I can see how he's being kind of crazy, right? Kind of ridiculous. He's saying it's my fault as the dad because I'm creating a consequence for him that he doesn't like when he's not doing what he said he would do, right? And here's the reality for him. He's not taking responsibility for his actions. And so he's not able to self-reflect and look inside and go, okay, why am I not doing what it requires to have my phone? What's missing for me, and how can I re-engage myself to solve for this problem? So he's not taking that responsibility. And this is the same thing that you, as the viewer of pornography, need to be doing. There's never, not ever, a reality where me as the viewer of pornography can say, my wife didn't meet my needs, or my wife didn't make the internet safe, right? Somebody didn't protect me from me, right? Nothing like that is available, right? The devil made me do it is not true. That's what agency is. You have to have your own agency. And if you don't have agency, then you're abdicating it in some way. So you got to go in and reassess. How do I, re-effectuate my own agency in this process, right? You choose to look or not look. Feel free to curiously explore why. Pay attention. Confront what's happening in your own brain. And you are going to have negative feelings like loneliness, disappointment, anger. Don't let them compound by making decisions that temporarily block the emotion. And what you want to do instead is seek to feel it, deal with it, understand it, and honestly and lovingly express it to the best of your ability, but also look at that feeling and go, okay, I can either sit here and feel crappy, or I can make a decision that's going to take me closer to my values, right? So I can unhook from that feeling, and then I can move toward whatever it is that I actually want in life. Also, intimacy comes through honesty and trust, not sex, not control, not buffering. So seek to find ways to experience intimacy. And I often describe intimacy as knowing everything that you can know about your partner and being able to choose them. So those are the things I know. And if you want to know more about those, or if you want to work on those, feel free to drop into the membership, or set up an appointment, and you and we can chat, and I can help you get to where you want to go. I want you guys to know, I love my wife and she loves me, but I can't control her and she cannot control me. I feel like that sounds so like I'm in charge of me and I got to be me, and that's not true, right? I still interact with her and I still think about what's going on for her and make decisions where I choose her. And that doesn't mean that I'm constantly running away from her or saying, you got to stay away from me. I choose her. So the idea I can't control her and she can't control me, that's not necessarily we have to stay away from each other. What that is we can be aware of our own needs and sometimes choose those over our partner's needs and sometimes not. And that's okay. But I want you to know it's possible. It's possible to figure this out. So, you've got this. And I hope that if you're paying attention to what it is that we do here, you're learning something and you're taking that learning and you're putting it into play, into effect in your life. And hopefully it's changing you. And, I love you guys. I love your comments. I love your reviews. I love getting to meet with you guys. I meet with, probably a dozen guys every single week. And we work hard to figure out how can they put into practice what's going on for them and change from, I'm I'm a guy who's stuck looking at porn all the time, to I'm the guy who is being who he wants to be. And I hope that's you. I hope you're listening to this and you're going, yeah, that's me. All right, you guys. I love you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Self Mastery Podcast. Every day, Darcy and I work with amazing men and women to remove pornography from their lives and relationships. If you're ready to take the next step in your journey, let us help you. Sign up for a consult at zachspafford.com/workwithme, and you can set up some time for you or your spouse to meet with me or with Darcy, and we can help you get started on your self-mastery journey.